Hey y'all, I am so excited for another live edition of our Enough Conversations. This has been a journey, y'all, that we have been on with so many powerful people who have showed us and told us that we are enough by the way they show up in their own lives because we see that they know that they had to tell themselves, I am enough to do all that they've done. Today, my very special guest is the one and only Joy Selman. I'm so excited. She is so accomplished. She is so multi-talented, so multifaceted. She is a McDonald's owner and operator. She's a church planter, a mom, a wife, and just too many talents to list. But I know that you are going to be inspired by her journey, her story. Welcome to the party, Joy.
Thank you, Dr. Tara Jenkins. And listen, you listed all those things for me, but you are equally the same, honey.
You are too much. Okay, so can you tell those who may be meeting you for the first time a little bit about the way you would describe yourself and your journey?
So I am everything you just said. I think I am a mother of two beautiful boys. I say beautiful because they're beautiful to me, but two handsome boys. I have a fabulous husband. And yes, we planted a church almost 8 years ago in Denton, Texas, Cross Church, Denton. But I also own and operate 9 McDonald's franchises, 4 in Dallas, 5 in Austin, Texas. And so it definitely keeps me busy. We don't have any dull moments around here. I'm always somewhere, whether it's Dallas, Austin, or somewhere in between. But that's just what we do. We are trying to build an empire, just really for the kingdom of God, even in a business sense. Everything we do really is to glorify God and to build a legacy for our families. And so that's what we're doing.
I love that so much. So, as you mentioned, it being a secular calling that has a spiritual impact, can you talk more about that? Because someone that might be listening or watching us, however they're consuming this content right now, might feel like ministry means on stage, right? Or being called to do something for God means you're holding a mic and you're behind a pulpit, but we are called to ministry even when we are in secular spaces. Can you speak to that even more?
For sure. And I'll tell you, I used to be one of those people. Like before I married a pastor, before all of those things, I thought, that's what ministry was. But ministry really is our everyday life, right? And how we walk it out. Sunday is one day out of the week that we come together and fellowship and get some good word. But ministry is every day. It's at home. It's how we run our families. It's how we treat each other, and even in business. So even though the two tend to be separate, in my specific organization, we are very God focused. Whenever we start a meeting, I have a leadership call every Monday meeting with my leadership staff. And we start each morning with prayer. And anybody who comes in our organization, we let them know we are a Christian organization. God is running this show here. And you can be on board or not, but that is how we get down. And we pray for our days. We pray for wisdom. We pray for the week ahead. We thank him for everything he's done. And so I just truly believe that it is my calling to not segregate the two, but to bring the Lord into everything I do, because if not for him, there would be no me, no organization, no legacy. So that is definitely how I married the two.
I love it. Okay. So I want to eventually get to what a normal week for you looks like because everything you listed sounds like how can one person lead all of these efforts? But before we get to that, I want to go through a journey where you take us from the beginning, right? So I wrote a book called Enoughness: The Journey to Discovering Who You Already Are. And in that was birthed out of the fact that I've talked to so many women over the last 25 years of being in full-time ministry. And no matter how beautiful they are, such as you, no matter how accomplished they are, as you are, each of us has moments where we have faced a struggle, a moment, a challenge, opportunity for growth, where we wondered, were we enough to do the thing that we felt like we were called and commissioned and created to do? So I want you to take us back to how this life of yours evolved into that. So I'll ask it like this. Did you always know that you would be a McDonald's owner and operator? And tell us a little bit about your family as well.
So I will do exactly what you have asked. And actually, I was with a mentee yesterday and had this exact same question posed. And yes, everybody has an enough story, and I am no exception. But I will take you back to the inception. So I can never do an interview without first giving credit to my parents, right? My father, even my grandparents. My grandparents were from Mississippi. My father is from the Ninth Ward in New Orleans, Louisiana, poorest of poor circumstances, right? He should have been a statistic. There were 8 children in their family. It was a 2-bedroom home. The parents had 1 bedroom. The girls had another. The boys slept in the living room. My father was the first of his siblings. He was number 6. He was the first of his siblings to graduate college. And so he just wanted a better life for himself. And he knew that he always wanted to be an entrepreneur. Now, I truly believe in exposure. And because of that exposure, he saw that there was a such thing as a better life than what he was exposed to. Now, his parents were amazing, right? But his circumstances were not. And so fast forward, he graduates from Xavier University, I believe. Yes, I believe
Aaron
it's
Jenkins, shout out my child.
he graduated from Xavier. He moved to California, Los Angeles to be exact. He meets my mom and has me. And did I always know I was going to be a McDonald's owner operator? Absolutely not. I actually was repulsed by the idea. I was like, I don't want to have anything to do with it. I started working in McDonald's when I was 11 years old. And so somebody is like, what? That, child labor laws. But when you are the owner's child, those laws don't apply to you. So we actually moved from Los Angeles to New Jersey. I started working on the weekends. I worked all the way through high school. And so I can honestly say my parents never pushed this opportunity on me. My father always told me this was my goal and my dream. I want you to pursue your passion. And I will never forget, I also attended in HBCU, North Carolina Central University, where I had, hey, go Pride. I had a professor tell me, he pretty much cussed me out without using cuss words. He was like, the nerve, the audacity of you to think that you want to do something else. Don't you realize the blood, sweat, tears, sacrifice your parents had to go through in order for you to have this opportunity? And here you are saying you just want to go pursue your own dream. And it kind of went in one ear and out the other. But as time progressed, as wisdom began to set in, as I became older, I came to my senses. And so in 2016, I came back to the business, and I had to really convince my father that it was something I wanted to do, right? Because for all of this time, I was like, nope, 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 nope. I don't want to do it. That's you. I want to pursue my own thing. And I did. So I pursued entertainment and television and radio production. And so I feel like I truly spread my wings and pursued what I wanted to pursue. But I then came to the realization that I'm working for someone else, making them rich, when I really could be sowing into my family and building this legacy. And so I came to him. He wasn't convinced. It took me about a year to convince him that I wanted to get back in the business. So 2016, I started, and he did not just hand over the opportunity to me. I had to start from the very bottom. had to work my way back up the ranks. I was making minimum wage. I think I was making like $7.50. At this time, I'm married. I have 2 children. And eventually, 2018, I became a licensed McDonald's owner operator. I become approved. And that is where the enough conversation began in my head. I was approved. I started attending meetings, and these meetings, the people, when I looked around, nobody really looked like me. They were a lot older than me. The demographics just weren't there. And I was kind of in a room feeling like a fish out of water. And I will never forget, I told my dad, I said, I don't feel enough. I don't feel like I'm enough. And I don't feel qualified to be in that room. And he looked me square in my eyeballs and he told me, the nerve. He said, you went through the exact same training they went through. You are just as qualified as they are. You better dust that dirt off your shoulders and walk in there with confidence and pride, knowing that you belong in that room. This is a door God opened for you and you belong. And I never looked back because I was like, you know what? You're right. I did go through all of the very same things. And in some cases, even more, but that's a whole nother story. But that is my journey. And that is my enough story where, sometimes we feel intimidated, but God has given us everything we need and we are qualified to be in whatever door he has opened for us.
I love that. So when you had the realization that you were supposed to come back to the business, because for all intents and purposes, it's been how many years between leaving the business, like as a child, working with your family's business to returning? Like how many years were in that between the New Testament and the Old Testament in your life? What was that intertestamental period?
What a great question, Tara. It was 16 years.
Wow.
16 years of my father thinking, this is something I just built for myself and my family at the time. And McDonald's having conversations with him of what his succession plan looked like because he was getting older. He was beginning to talk about retirement. And so, here comes Joy Come Lately. And so typically, like a typical next generation owner operator has started from the very beginning and has stayed in the business all the way through. So when I come along 16 years later, the corporation didn't know a thing about me. They were like, you have a daughter? Really? Where is she? And so, yeah, it took me.
I just wanted to touch on that because I want to encourage like some parent that might be listening right now, right? That's wondering, hoping, praying that their child is supposed to be a part of their succession plan. And maybe they don't even see any hints of interest, but a seed was sown and watered. And was it an event when you realized I'm supposed to do this? Was it a dream? Was it a word someone gave you?
I just think it was that realization that, I'm watching my dad and all that he has sacrificed pour into this dream. And don't get me wrong, I love the Golden Arches, right? Like that has always been a part of who I am. But I think it was divine design for me to do those other things because then I gained skills and talents that I could then bring back into the business. Whereas if I had just stayed, I would have learned the McDonald's way and the McDonald's way only, which I truly believe in my heart of hearts would not have benefited me. It benefits some people, but for me, I needed to learn those other skills that I could incorporate and bring back into the business that would add value and build upon what he had already started as a foundation.
I love that so much because our journeys don't always look like somebody else's journey, right? And a lot of times we can get judged by the differences in our journeys. But whoever's watching, listening right now, you've been trying to compare yourself to somebody else's timeline. All of our journeys look different. And you are still enough, even though your path is different than somebody else's path.
Yes.
Okay, so I met you, I don't know how many years ago, But do you know, like,
Well, first of all, we can back it up. How old are our kids?
20,
20. So I
20,
would say
19, and 14.
yes. I'm gonna say, well, we definitely met before the kids because I was on staff at Concord working with Stephanie.
Shout out to Stephanie
Hey,
Carter,
Stephanie Carter. Hey, Lady Carter.
LC.
So I was working for, oh gosh, I don't remember. We're gonna say if the kids are 20, I'm gonna say it was probably 10 years ago.
That's amazing. Well, I just wanted to give context for the moment I met you, you were already an on fire entrepreneur. When I met you, not only did you have this creativity that bubbled out of you, like you were helping design sets. And when I say design sets and build sets, y'all, I mean like hammer, nails, wood, paint, glitter. Like not digitally. There was no AI. This is like really with hands and and like I was just like, what can she not do? And you were also, when I met you, such a bubbly entrepreneur that you had this hot pink car that represented the business that you had created. And I was just like, her, I want a hot pink car.
Yes, yes, yes.
And so I just love that you are always exuded the brand that you were representing, and it made you unforgettable from the moment I met you. And so you're such an example to entrepreneurs of any age. I know my kids have immediately looked up to you in every phase of your life that they've known you in. And I so appreciate that about you.
Listen, I believe in representing your brand, no matter what it is, because you just hit on something that I would like to expound upon, and that is we cannot compare our stories, right? My story looks different from yours. And, especially in this social media world we live in, we're always looking at what someone else has. But I believe that comparison is the thief of joy. And we oftentimes want what somebody else has, but they don't understand what it took to get there. And so you're right. So before McDonald's, I had a company called Beauty and the Bling. And I drove around in this hot pink SUV that had rhinestones all over it. And it was gaudy and it was really embarrassing for my children. But that business taught me the actual business, the profit and loss statements and how to build income and sales and revenue that I had no idea then would prepare me for where I am now. It was on a much smaller scale, of course, but yes. And I just believe everywhere you go, when we build businesses, we're proud of those businesses and we have to represent them through every door we walk in, because that is who we are. It's not all of our identity, but it is a part of who we are as people. So I believe in personal brands and I believe in representing whatever brand you're a part of.
And that too speaks to enoughness, right? Because to have the enoughness to walk around with the bling, to drive the bling, that said, I'm enough to do this business, and you are not ashamed to represent that you own that business in
Right.
every parking lot, in every street, on every school campus. And so that too, I believe, was a visible example for your children, because you have such uber talented children who I feel like, what don't they do, right?
Oh my gosh, don't get me started on them.
Shout out to the boys. You can brag on them for a second.
Listen, I have two amazing boys, Jordan and Jaden, 17 and 20, about to be 21. I don't even know how we got to this point. Like it was birth and then grown, right? Like, how does that happen? So one is a junior in high school. He's kicking butt and taking names. And the other is a junior in college. He is at the Penn State University. just doing all the things. Like if living your best life were a person, it's Jordan all day long. And so, love the friendship they have with your children. I know Jordan and Princess have been like best friends for years and years and years. And I'm just so blessed by their friendship and the fact that they have each other, even though they're miles away from each other, right? But that friendship started at such a young age, and now has continued to grow and mature, and they just have each other's back, and I love it. I just love it.
Me too. And again, it speaks to exposure because they are definitely growing up with completely different norms than I grew up with. But Princess, my oldest, did the summer out of the country, and she's talking to your son. It's like, oh, I'm gonna be out the country too. Oh, we're gonna be in the same country these 2 days. And I was just like,
yes.
how is this your 20-year-old life? I love
yes.
I love that that's y'all's norm. One day when I grow up, right?
Yeah, I say the same thing. Like when I grow up, I want to be like Jordan and Princess. Like, wow.
Yeah, I think it's really cool though. And that too shows that the enough feeling that you have exuded, it is generational because your dad knew he was enough to be a McDonald's owner and operator without seeing that before in his own lineage. And then for when I was just encouraged even by Princess applying for this possibility for the summer because this is something she would be doing without any family member, right? So I was like, I'm glad that she's even willing to do that alone, and that too takes an enoughness to say, I can live a new place for 8 weeks. I can deal with a language barrier or whatever the case may be, but that comes from seeing and the exposure of knowing that whoever you are, you can shine in any situation, in any country, all over the world. Like we are called to let our light shine for the world. And
yeah, but we have to pause right there because shout out to you, right? You're right. That's not your norm. That's not my norm, but each one teach one. And as we are really pouring into our children and pouring into other women and pouring into the people we come into community with, I truly believe it makes a difference. Whether your platform is one person, whether your platform is your children, whether your platform affects millions, it really matters how we pour into each other and build each other up. Because some days, I had that enough experience, but every day is not the same. I may wake up and on one day and feel like today I just don't feel like enough. And then you have a girlfriend and that calls you, or a parent or somebody in your family or even somebody on your job that pours into you. And we have to just keep lifting each other up and being constant reminders that we are enough. You're enough no matter what. Even on your worst day, you're still enough.
Absolutely. I want to shout out my mom, Margaret Rawls, because I grew up in a city of about 100,000 people in Jackson, Tennessee. And that did not stop my mom from exposing me to so many different things, right? We would go 80 miles to Memphis to the opera. We would go 120 miles to Nashville to the Grand Ole Opry. We would go, we could not wait till January when the Ebony Fashion Fair came to town, right?
Yes.
So it was just like amazing. So when I went to undergrad in Atlanta and then moved to Chicago, and there were so many youth that I was serving in a season who lived in a far bigger city with far more opportunities that had never gone to the lakefront.
Yeah.
And so just being able to be there for others, and I want to encourage others who might be watching or listening right now, it might not be a family member that exposes you, but if God puts somebody in your life, in your path, who wants to show you something that might feel foreign, if it's a positive experience, if it's for your good, even in that discomfort, step out of your comfort zone and know that you're enough to show up. And if there is an opportunity take it. There's an interview that I watched of Naomi Campbell that I often quote. And someone asked her, when did she decide to be a supermodel? And she said, I never decided to be a supermodel. I just kept walking through open doors.
Amen.
And so
Yeah.
just keep walking through open doors, y'all. Even if you don't feel qualified, even if on paper you're not qualified, we serve a rule breaking God. So keep walking through those open doors and know that you are enough. All right. So you also are a church planter.
Yeah.
So when you were planning out your life's map,
Ah,
you said by 20, I'm going to do this, and by 30, I'm going to do this, and by 40, I'm going to do this. Was being a pastor's wife or founding a church, being a church planter on your list?
absolutely not. And you know, like the Lord has a sense of humor. So listen, honey, we've been laughing for the last 8 years because it not only it wasn't on my radar, it wasn't on my husband's radar either. Now I will say he knew that he would be a pastor one day, but you know how we do. We map it out, just like you said. So he was like, oh, his father was a pastor. He was like, I'm sure somebody will retire. And, once they retire, I'll step into the role. And he flat out told me, like, church planting is not for me. And that's all you have to say for God. He's like, that's it. That's exactly what you're going to do. And so, at being a church planter's wife, you are kind of thrown into it, whether you want to or not. Now, I actually did embrace the process. What I did not embrace was a role that I ended up being assigned. So having to wear many hats. So my husband was like, okay, I got the preaching. You going to sing or are you going to be over children's ministry? And I was like, yeah, neither.
None of the above.
No, yeah, choice C, none of the above.
This multiple choice, Jesus.
He was like, well, we really have to do something. Now, here's what I will say. Shout out to my husband. Oftentimes being a pastor's wife can be viewed as a very lonely, like fishbowl experience. From day one, he told me, he was like, I want you to be yourself. I am very unconventional, non-conventional. I'm not typical at all, right? Like who you see on Sunday is the same person you see today on Friday is the same person you're going to see Wednesday. It doesn't matter. There's no putting on airs. And so for that, I am extremely grateful. So I had a horrible experience singing in the choir when I was younger. But then the other thing is, I'm not really like a warm and fuzzy kid person. That like being around little kids don't make my ovaries jump. So I was like, yeah, I don't know what we're gonna do. Long story short, I chose singing. Thank God we still have some of the same members that started with us 8 years ago today, because baby, it was rough. But we made it and we're still growing.
That is great. And what's so encouraging about that is that calling and season has little to do with comfort, right?
Say that again. Say it again. Say it again for the people on the back.
Calling and season has little to do with comfort. Because I think sometimes we're looking for confirmation through comfort.
Oh, ma'am.
And that is not how it works. We see plenty of stories and biblical examples of situations that are uncomfortable, but are still you being in the perfect will of your creator. And so,
can we just elaborate on that? I tell people all the time who want to start businesses, and whether it's church planting or whether it's business, you have to know that the journey is not a straight line. It's jagged. And those jagged edges are the uncomfortable points. So when you get ready to step out on faith and start that business or plant a church or whatever it is you're trying to do, just know going into it, it's going to be uncomfortable, and embrace that. So when it comes, you're like, oh, hey, uncomfortability, I was expecting you. Hello, welcome. We're just going to embrace this thing and we're going to keep pushing past it, because that's what you have to do. it'll talk to you and it'll start speaking to you, and it'll look like fear, and it'll look like discouragement, and it'll look like butterflies, and it'll look like, all the things that we do not embrace. But if you go into it knowing it's going to be uncomfortable, then half the battle is already won. Just expect it.
Right. My husband, shout out Charles Dickens. He often explains like what it looks like when we're watching a heartbeat, right? Those peaks, those valleys, that is what life looks like. And if it's linear and a flat line, that means we're out of here.
We're out of here, honey. Yes.
So it's part of the life's journey. And so when we see those moments, we should expect them, not be surprised by them. And it is not comfortable, and it is not warm and fuzzy, but it's part of the yes. And I'm grateful for your many yeses. And you inspire me. And just seeing the way you live and lead and love is so exciting, because your business just keeps growing and growing and growing. And it is phenomenal. All right. So I want to know what a normal week for you looks like. For those who might have tuned in mid conversation, can you remind us of the things that you do? All right, you are enough.
I am a wife. I am a mother. I'm a daughter. I'm a church planter's wife. And I am a McDonald's owner operator of 9 restaurants in Dallas, Texas, and in Austin, Texas. And you asked me what a normal day looks like, because that's what you want to know. And guess what?
I want to know the week.
A normal week. You want to know what a normal week looks like. And I do too. That's probably why I said a day, because honey, I got to take it in bite-sized pieces. I got to take it minute by minute, hour by hour. Like, I don't know. Like, legitimately, today I'm in Austin, Texas. Last week, I was in Dallas. The week before that, I was in New York. The week before that, I was in Chicago. The week before that, I may have been in Dallas or in Austin, but I'm in my restaurants on some days. Some days I'm sitting behind a camera on some national meeting for a committee. Other days I may be in person at a meeting. Other days I'm, with my staff, and we're team building and we're doing things to create camaraderie and relationship within our organization. Other days I'm with my kids at football games and, and award ceremonies. Like, I literally do not have a normal. And I know that sounds crazy, but seriously,
I get it.
But that's what I love about it, right? Because I'm a person who gets bored very easy. So this career for me is perfect, because literally there's no day that's the same. Not even a day that's similar.
I think that in itself is comforting, because if I have friends who have a planned life and my life is a very unplanned life, I can feel like something's wrong with my life. Right. And so thank you for sharing how honestly it is not a norm that is predictable, right? And so there's comfort in knowing that, where we can lower our expectations, that if, there are some people who dream of this life of entrepreneurship and leadership. There might be a budding McDonald's owner and operator that's listening, watching right now. And they need to embrace this as a reality. And so I'm so glad that you shared that. My husband and I were at a conference. I don't even remember where we were exactly, but there was a statement said that God has called us to a life of adventure. And that immediately became our family mantra, because our life has been very unusual in our journey of what cities we serve in and who we are serving and what circles God places us in. It's not been anything that we could personally plan. And so when a shift comes and we feel a season shift, the immediate statement is, God has called us into a life of adventure. I'm so grateful for you sharing details about your adventure.
Yes, but you know what, Tara? Like, I would love for you even to expound upon that, because so many times, like, I know when I was brought up, I was taught you graduate from college, you get a job, you stick with that job, you retire from that job, and that's your life, right? But you guys have been such an inspiration because you've taken on so many things. And when God tells you the time is up, it's time to move on to something else. Can you talk about how you have embraced your next seasons and what that enoughness look like going from season to season, right? Because even pastoring a church, such a profound and just a legendary church, and then stepping down because you feel like, it's time for us to move on and start something else. I think that is what the inspiration is. We're oftentimes taught that you stick with something, but sometimes God does not call us to stick with something forever, and that is not a failure. That is something, like you said, a life of adventure, because I believe life is too short. You got to explore and you got to do what God has called you to do. And I mean, you may have talked about this on other episodes, but that's so inspirational to me. And how you view enoughness in different seasons.
My husband did a book called Seasons, and we have an upcoming conversation called Enough for Each Season. And so you are on it. And so what is just prevalent is that when a season is ending, you can feel it, right? There are things that used to be tolerable that are no longer. And all of you, if you've ever moved from a place that you live, you moved from a city, you moved from a job, you can feel when the season is over. It is up to us to follow what God is doing in our hearts and speaking to us, or to stuff it and try to stay where we know that the season is up. And a lot of times the people that teach us to stay and stay and stay, that's all that they have seen. Sure. And they're advising from a place of love. They're advising and giving wisdom, maybe from their own experience. Some of them may be projecting some of their own fears. And so we have to have our own ability to hear God's voice for our lives, so that even when human voices are saying something different, we can still feel that, okay, God is tugging on me to do something different than what my advisors are saying. And
that's so powerful.
It can be hard because you want everybody to get it. But like, I think there's a meme going around saying, God told you it wasn't a conference call.
Exactly. I've seen that. You're right. We often look for other people to co-sign what God has told us to do. And that will derail you. I've lived that life too. That will derail you. If you know that God has called you to do something, that one calling is enough.
Enough.
Yeah.
Enough. It's so amazing, but God will give confirmations, right? And so my husband often teaches, and it's in his book, God speaks to us through thoughts, ideas, situations, people, primarily his word. Yeah. There are thoughts, ideas, people, situations, primarily his word. And so when you're tuned into those thoughts, ideas, people, situations, primarily his word, the confirmations, I think Margaret Feinberg calls it the sacred echo. Like when God is trying to tell you something, show you something, it'll keep echoing. Amen. It'll keep echoing. You can try to be like, nah, I don't feel like it. Not right now.
Yeah.
I don't feel like a season shift. I'm about to have 2 kids in college.
Right. Yeah.
I don't feel like moving. Like, we want the end result without the process. Yes, love a new house, hate moving. Anybody else?
Absolutely. The magic happens in the middle, right? It's not when you get there. It's all of this, that heartbeat, that uncomfortability, right? That's where the magic is made. You don't get to go to start to finish and it just, ta-da happens. No, it doesn't work like that.
Right. I be wanting to like remote control, like, let's fast forward this process.
Right. Yes. Absolutely.
Let's go
Yes.
from registration to graduation.
Yes.
Let's fast forward their matriculation.
Yes. Yes. I know. Unfortunately, it don't work like that. You got to
It
go
does
through.
not work like that, y'all. We got to go through the process, and you are enough for every part of the process, even the parts you do not like and the parts you want to fast forward, and the parts that you don't even want to be a part of your story. You're enough for that too. I'm so excited about our conversation, Joy. Can you share with someone how they can follow your amazing journey or what you have coming up that we can support you in? That we have a book bubbling or anything? Or am I speaking something?
Listen, actually, we do have some things bubbling up. My husband and I are in the process of starting a couple of things. So since this is business related, I'm going to keep it to that. And then if you want to see the rest of the journey, then yes, you can feel free to follow me if you'd like. But for businesses, it's a side hustle to startup. And that is for those people who are seeking entrepreneurship and are just wanting coaching and advice on how they can make their magic in the middle. How do I start from an idea and take that to execution? And so it's not quite ready yet. That is like so hot off the press.
Yay! We got the exclusive, y'all.
Yes, yes. But you can always follow me. I'm not super engaged, but a little bit on Instagram at give joy, the number 2, get joy. Because I just believe that we have to give it if that's what we're looking for in our life. So at give joy to get joy.
I love that. And we are looking forward to supporting your restaurants.
Yes.
When we are in the Dallas area, the Austin area, and beyond, whatever is coming next, we're going to support that too.
Yes. I think, before we wrap, Tara, I have to tell you, you said something probably 5 to 7 years ago that you talked about all the mantras in your house. Well, we have a mantra in our house, and it's not about adventure. It is a direct quote from the Dr. Tara Jenkins.
Oh,
yes. It was quoted even on Sunday. When people come to us and they desire to do whatever it is, and they are oftentimes met with the same end result that most of the time is failure. We tell them, you say you want to do these things, but you just have a broken want to. And we got that from you, and we use it over and over. We should be paying you tithe on it, because when people come to us, they're like, you know what? You say you want to do this, but you really don't. Your want to is just flat out broken. Quote from the Dr. Tara Jenkins. It was in some amazing message you were preaching at Concord. And I'm sure, I don't know if you even remember what message that was from, but that's what you said. You were like, half of y'all's problem in here is you just have a broken want to. I was like, oh, that's a word right there. And it has stuck through the years.
Thank you. I'm glad that was memorable.
It was memorable. It was
Thank you for encouraging me with that memory. Yeah. I am looking forward to seeing all the exciting things coming next. You inspire us. You are enough, and you make us believe that we are enough as well. Thank you so much, Joy.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity and just to be here with you and all those who are watching.
Thank you. See y'all next time on Enough Conversations. Remember, you are enough.